she's got a great story of a high school she started for kids that really needed a chance at victory, and in fact, it's named Victory High School. So without further ado, without further ado, whatever. Let me introduce to you Tina Miller. Tina, how are you tonight?
Hey, how are you?
What's going on in your life? I haven't seen you. It's been
a year.
It's been a year since we did the last show.
That's right. It actually showed up on my Facebook memory.
Oh, did you get a memory?
Yeah.
So?
It's like, happy anniversary to us.
And then here we are. What are the odds of that?
I know. Thank you so much.
Well, it's always good to help out in whatever capacity. I think when we can help out, we should help out. Now, I don't have I know having knowing you and having had you on the show before, I kind of know the background story, but tell us a little bit about yourself and then how you ended up with the idea for Victory High School.
Yes, so I was born and raised in Ohio. I say actually usually I was born and raised in Central America, Ohio. So, and actually my father was an alcoholic the first 4 years of my life, and he found sobriety when I was 4 years old, and I used to attend Alcoholics Anonymous meetings with him. And so I always joke around, I should have just stayed.
Yeah.
4 years old, it would have saved a lot of heartache and a lot of pain and suffering, but you know.
Well, that was me back in the day. I was a little kid in the parking lot while my dad was in there. So.
That's right. I remember that story.
So I used to throw rocks in the puddle and then go in and eat the leftover Entenmann's.
Yeah. Yes.
All muddy and dirty, and when the adults came out, the kids would run in there and eat all the leftover food.
Yeah, donuts and that, right? Yeah. So my first exposure of Alcoholics Anonymous, of 12-step recovery groups, was that these people are really supportive and really loving. And I always remembered that. And his sponsor and his sponsor's wife would take us out to dinner and buy us gifts for different holidays. And I just thought, wow, these people are really loving and really supportive. And so I had a really great impression of 12-step recovery at a young age. And then plus my dad was sober, so I had my dad back. And it was a win-win for everyone. And that's kind of how I started off. And then, of course, like I said, I went down my own path. At 14 years old, I started drinking. 9 years old, I started smoking cigarettes and trying to roll up everything and anything and smoke it. Paper plates, corn silk. I do not suggest trying to smoke some corn silk.
I remember hearing about that, but we didn't have corn in Staten Island, so
yeah.
I didn't grow up in Ohio.
Yeah, that's right. We had lots of cornfields, but so I was curious. I think I was curious, but I wanted to numb a lot of the pain and a lot of the things that I was going through as a child. And so at 14 years old, I started to drink. And actually, it was a situation where my dad being a recovering alcoholic, there wasn't much alcohol in the house. And my mom is one of those social drinkers where, she gets red-faced and dizzy, and she's like, oh, I'm done. And she throws away the drink. And I'm like, that's alcohol, boy. That's alcohol abuse, Yeah. So
I hate people like that.
I know, right? I don't get it. I cannot relate to people like that. But anyways, so at 14 years old, I found some old Mogan David wine in the refrigerator, and so I started drinking it. Well, my best friend who was with me at the time was like my mom. Get red faced, she's got dizzy, and I'm done. And I was like, great, more for me.
Yeah.
So I polished off the whole bottle and I passed out. And that was my first drinking experience.
And how old were you? 14?
14. Yeah, I was 14 years old.
So you started very young. So,
yeah.
So, and I did too. I quit drinking when I was 21, and I was kind of sentenced to AA or to the 12-step programs when I was 16. So it was that or go to a place called Daytop Village, which is like Boys Town, basically. So, of course, I remembered 12-step program from my childhood. So I'm like, heck, I'll go there. They got Entenmann's.
Yeah.
So the
donuts.
Yeah. So the reason I mentioned that, the reason I have you pointed out, or that I pointed out myself, is because that was key for where you would end up, what you would end up doing as an adult. So how long were you kind of active in your addiction? How bad did it get?
So at 23 years old is when I actually went to my father and I shared with him that I was an alcoholic. And so my father took me to my first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, which was one of the meetings that I knew he always attended. And I still go back there whenever I'm in Ohio. I go back to that meeting, and that's my home group. And, of course, my dad's like the only old-timer left because a lot of them have passed on.
Yeah.
So my father celebrated 42 years sober in January, and I celebrated 23 years January 31st. And so I was 23 years old when I got sober.
So that's super young, like me.
Yes.
So and there's not a lot, especially back in those days, there weren't a lot of young people.
No.
And then
Especially young females.
Yeah.
None of us.
And so, yeah, counting me, there was one. So it was, the cool thing is they literally kind of babysat me. So they were like, I go to work. Who's going to take care of Kevin, you know? And so they would we hung out in this diner, and they fed me, and they drove me around, and, New York City. So, like, they wanted Italian food, we go to Little Italy. They wanted Chinese food, we go to Chinatown.
Yum.
I mean, they just took care of me for months.
That's awesome.
And so it is, the heart of these people is amazing to me still. Now, I've been around, that was 32 years ago, and the spirit of service that these people have is absolutely amazing. So anyway, so you were out there for about 14 years, or you were 23, so about 7-8 years of trouble, and then you had enough, which is smart.
That's right.
And then, so tell me what happened. You didn't just start this high school, but you kind of did other things. What did you do in those years?
So actually, when I got sober at 23 years old, I realized that I had this old Italian man actually from New York that his name was Don, and Don was just yay tall, and he carried a pistol. And he drove a 1967, I think it was, a big Cadillac convertible.
Nice, my kind of guy.
And he wore,
guns and Cadillacs.
Yes, and he wore a 3-piece suit. And so Don kind of took me under his wing, and I'll never forget, he's like, if you take all the energy and all the time you put into your addictions and you put that into your recovery, you might have a chance at this, Miller. And I remember I was like, game on, because I'm a very competitive person. So I was like, okay, old man, game on.
No one's going to tell me.
That's right. That's right. And so I had said something to him. I said, I don't feel like I belong. And he said, feelings aren't facts. Mm. And I remember thinking, like, really? Like, Al-Anon's teaching me all about feelings, you got to start feeling your feelings and sharing that. And then here he's like, feelings aren't facts. And I was like, I'm looking around the room, and it's a bunch of old men and AA and me, Yeah. And he's like, if you don't feel like you belong, then you need to create a young people's meeting where you belong. Mm-hmm. So I did. And so I started 2 young people's AA meetings up in Ohio, one in Canton, one in Akron. And so
Akron happens to be a big city for us.
That's right, yes. So I had the opportunity of actually being in Akron when I got sober. And what's so cool about Akron being the birthplace of Alcoholics Anonymous is that there's meetings 24/7.
Yeah.
So the first 90 days of my sobriety, I attended 116 meetings, not because I was court ordered, but because I had what Don said to me: take all that energy and time you put into your addictions and manipulating people and lying and cheating and stealing, and put that into your recovery, and you might have a chance. So that's what I did. And I lived my recovery, and I did everything for sobriety. I remember painting my sister's walls in her house, and I was thinking, if it's going to keep me sober, I'm going to paint.
So, and so we get into service work almost right away. But you got into service work and then said, well, let me take this to another level, because we're talking about a time where there wasn't a ton of young people, and it was very hard to connect young people, I'm sure.
Yes.
And I imagine, I didn't have this problem, but I imagine a lot of young people have trouble relating to, some of these people are 40, like really old, like 40. Right.
Or 46,
so I remember thinking to myself, man, I got the same problem as these old people. Some of them are 30 and 40. And so So it was you saw a need and you filled it even back then, right?
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
and that would then ultimately manifest itself in Victory High School, which is
Yes.
pretty cool. And we got a really cool announcement about Victory High School here tonight,
Yes.
which is kind of why we're here.
I know.
So tell us about what is Victory High School, and tell us what gave you the idea.
Real quick, I just, by the grace of God, I graduated from college, 1999, from the University of Akron.
Nice.
And I went straight into social work. And with social work, I worked with families that struggled with addictions. And then through social work, I actually went into education, and then I went into juvenile justice. So the past 7 years, I had worked in Department of Juvenile Justice. What I kept seeing were young people that they would come into either the detention center, juvie jail, or a residential facility. They would get a couple days, maybe a week, maybe 20 days of recovery and substance-free. And as soon as they would get released, they'd go back home, back to the traditional school, and they would relapse.
Right. They'd be exactly in the situation that they were in just 2 or 3 weeks
And it was
earlier.
like a revolving door.
Yeah.
So these young people would be released. We thought we were rehabilitating them, but they'd go back to the same environment, the same in traditional school, and they would come right back. And I thought, there's got to be something out there. So 5 years ago, I actually started to research, and there's got to be something. And I found collegiate recovery communities. So there's colleges throughout the United States that actually offer recovery programs for their students, where I'm like, where was that 23 years ago?
Yeah.
That would have been really super
Especially in
helpful
colleges.
for me. Yeah, it would have
People
been
tell
great.
me I had a lot of fun in college.
I know. I was told I had an amazing time. It was, I was on probation 5 of the 6 years I was in college, academic probation. But it was like, wow, there's so many opportunities for young people. And then I came across these recovery high schools, and that there were 44 of them in the United States. So I started to research that. The first one was actually in the 70s. It's called a sober school.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. And so it's amazing how they've evolved, this whole over the years. But so a recovery high school is a safe, at least Victory High School is a safe, healing-centered environment. And what that means is the research that has been done by Dr. Finch through Vanderbilt University is actually that 94% of students in recovery high schools in the United States have actually survived childhood trauma. So when you look at these young people that are using substances, first and foremost, they are struggling with childhood trauma. Okay, and what we know about the brain is when a young person or any person has a trauma brain and they're relying on that trauma brain, or they're surviving in that trauma brain, they're going to have fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
And when you're in that survivor mode, you can't learn. You are not thinking logically. And when you're in that fight, flight, or freeze, you're trying to survive. Your body's going into actually survival mode. You're thinking of surviving. You're not thinking of, 4 plus 4 equals Y, or,
Yeah, you got more important things to worry about
Exactly.
in that environment.
So when I learned all of that, and I was certified in TBRI, which is Trust-Based Relational Intervention. And what it is saying, you know what, okay, this student has this behavior, but instead of addressing, that behavior, let's dig deeper and find out where that behavior came from. What happened to that student, why they're behaving the way they are. So that's so important with our young people, is to say what happened, not why the heck are you acting this way? Why are you acting a fool? So to find out what happened to them, and then to be able to address those basic needs, to address that survival strategy that's happening in their trauma brain. And so there's different ways that you can do that. You could do that, physically, emotionally, spiritually, so on and so forth. And so that's what we do at Victory High School. All of my volunteers are trained in trauma responsive services. So number one, we want to keep our students alive. Number two, we want to emotionally and mentally stabilize them. Because if they're not emotionally or mentally stable, they're not going to learn.
Right.
And so sometimes people, what about the academics? What about, and I'm like, I'm just trying to keep them alive. There's days where I just want to keep them alive.
I remember those days,
Yeah.
even still. So so about a year ago, you really started to put this plan into action, right?
Yes. So for 3 years, I was working behind the scenes when I worked for Department of Juvenile Justice. And in my head, I kept thinking, I'm not going to run this. I am not qualified. I barely passed college. I mean, barely with 2.5 grade point average.
Yeah.
I was like, barely. I think they passed me actually because they were like, we got to get rid of her.
Yeah.
She's going to be a career student. Like, this is going
Just easier to get the heck out of here.
Let's just get her out of here. Academic probation, 5 of the 6 years, they just wanted to move me on. And so I'm like, okay, I am not qualified. I am so not qualified to open a school, really. There's times I do yoga and they're like, lift your right foot up, and I lift my left foot up, and I'm like, I have a
So
school.
you definitely can't teach yoga at this school.
No. I'm lifting my left foot up, and they're saying right foot up. Oh, I don't do a very good job with the hokey pokey. Let's just say that. But anyway, so so it was one of those situations where I was at a faith conference actually in Pinellas County, and I didn't see a friend for like 2 years. And the first thing he said to me, he came up to me and he says, how can I pray for you to open this recovery high school? And I went, oh, no. I'm not opening it. He's like, yes, you are.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh. He's like, the Lord told me you're opening it. Oh, are you kidding me? I worked for the state government. I had benefits. I had a pension. I had,
So when the Lord was speaking to you, you let it go to voicemail. You have spiritual voicemail.
Yeah.
So you'll get back to him.
I was like, oh, no, God.
So he had to circumvent that. He had to go around your
That's right.
plan and puncture your dreams
Use
with his
someone
dreams,
else.
right?
Yeah.
So was that you say the time that you said, well, you threw your hands up and say, well, it's time to put up or shut up, or
Yeah, so that's pretty much what happened. Is I put together a board of directors of really incredible, passionate people that really wanted to see young people, be successful. The majority of these people that were on my board of directors were either in recovery themselves, or they had a loved one that had struggled with addictions. So they were very passionate about the calls, the mission, and that's how it started. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm the executive director now. So it was, I actually resigned from my state government job because it was a conflict of interest. People started, Department of Juvenile Justice open a recovery high school. And yeah. So I resigned from July 30th, 2020. I resigned from the Department of Juvenile Justice, and I just dove face first out of faith into starting this nonprofit.
And so but it seems to be working. In other words, you've had in just in the first year you're able to get 10 students, 12 students, something like that.
Yeah, so we've served 10 students, and
are they all from the local area? Is it national, or how do you find these kids?
So we actually have students from Riverview that drive every day to Newport Richey.
Really?
We have students, Clearwater, and then Pasco County. So because we are a private nonprofit school, we can have an open door policy where we have students from anywhere.
Yeah, so zoning restrictions and stuff like that don't even apply.
We don't have any of that. We have our own board of directors, so we don't rely on the school district. And it makes it really nice because we're interfaith. We're not one particular faith, so we're spiritual. We have spiritual teachings, but we're not Christian, or
Right.
because
It's
we have
open for everybody.
absolutely, we have students that are atheists. I was an atheist when I got sober at 23 years old. I always remember that. You know, people loved me where I was at, and and then they respected that, and it was baby steps. I had to learn about God, about a higher power. I had to learn about God, and then, I was able then to accept
I was
Jesus
raised
Christ.
thinking Clapton was God. It was on every subway in New York, so I just assumed. So you get this thing started, and you got these kids coming in. Now, we were talking a little bit off the air, but you've got a team of volunteers essentially pouring into these kids on a regular
Unbelievable.
basis.
Just amazing volunteers that come in and they teach expressive art therapy and yoga and meditation and you name it, creative writing classes. And we have programs like Prodigy that come in and they teach visual arts classes and drumming classes.
Yeah.
We have Baycare actually provides our nutrition classes. And it's so cool. Each student got a Fitbit, and they're like, "That's my heart rate," and it, like, I guess I'm an Android user, but
Yeah,
I guess with
it hooks to
iPhone,
your phone.
yeah, they can see if they got any sleep, and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So it's pretty cool. They're learning about their bodies and how their bodies are machines, and we're teaching them about fueling their machine.
The importance of
machines.
eating well, sleeping, getting
yes.
exercise, the
All
things
the basics.
that we more and more we've become so sedentary that we forget the importance of good physical activity every day, right?
That's
And
right.
staying active, because more and more, I mean, we're sitting in an air-conditioned studio right now doing our thing.
Yeah.
I don't really have to break a sweat. I plumbed for 25 years, and I don't have to break a sweat anymore.
Yeah.
So if I don't want to, I go from one air-conditioned building to another, but that's not healthy. And there's so many life skills, and people talk about this all the time, but there's so many life skills that are overlooked in the education system. We do a Building 12 program here at the church, and so it's like a recovery. It's faith-based, but it's recovery for everybody, codependency, low self-esteem, whatever it is that you're struggling with, not just drugs and alcohol. But we were talking recently about how do we water this down and start teaching even kids, young kids should begin to live in their assets, say, right, and not always. We almost condition ourselves to live desperately every day, right? And so the importance of being spiritually sound for your health, for your decision making, for everything that goes into it. Do the kids come to you? Do they need detox? How are they chemically dependent, or is it just emotional, or both?
They're all of the above. So they have either a diagnosis of substance use disorder or co-occurring disorders. Right now, all of our students are co-occurring disorders and multiple drugs of choice.
Yeah,
so co-occurring is that they have a dual diagnosis. So they have a mental illness as well as substance use disorder. So they're struggling with either depression and addictions, or anxiety and addictions, or ADHD and addictions, or which is basically all of us, right, in recovery. I mean,
and
let's
a
be
surprising
honest.
number. Now, I've worked with that population, but I can tell you that it bleeds over. So everybody that I know has everybody they know that has a chemical problem has another overwhelming compulsion or obsession that's keeping them from God's best every day, right?
Yep.
So they struggle every day with something that we don't address in the 12-step programs. So then therein lies the foundation of until they can get traction, right? Until they can put two coherent thoughts in a row.
Yeah.
They don't really stand a chance. So getting the psychiatric help they need, maybe psychotropic medications and things, just to help them balance out to where they can get they can make the kind of decisions that they can build on finally, right?
Yeah.
And then you could begin once you have that foundation built. And of course, as a pastor, I'm always going to tell you, spiritual foundation is critical too. So then you can then begin to pour into the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s, and or learning trades and taking something that they can actually apply and get and into the market, the free market system, and actually somebody will pay them for that skill rather than getting a degree in finger painting or interpretive dance. Well, there's not a big market for that, but
Sure.
but get these kids prepared to perform well as employees, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're teenagers; they're getting there anyway.
That's right. Yeah. We got 2 of them actually right now have jobs. One just went today. I took her to an interview and she got it. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So so you begin then to have, for these kids, you begin to have measurable. You set
Outcomes.
measurable goals,
Yes.
and then you recognize when you attain those goals, right?
Yeah. So what's incredible is, these were students that, I mean, I have one student that's been expelled 3 times from 3 different schools in Pasco County.
Mm-hmm.
And he attended every day in the summer because we're a year-round school.
Yeah.
He came every day in the summer. And this is a young man that he relapsed. And, these are my kids. I love these kids. And, I want to love on them. And I love them where they're at. And I'm going to be there beside them. And no matter what they do, I'm not giving up on them. I spoke in front of the county commissioners one time, and the county commissioner asked me, so what if they relapse? And I'm like, if there's breath, there's hope.
Yeah.
And they're like, but what if they relapse again? If there's breath, there's hope. It doesn't matter how many times they relapse.
That guy's clearly not from our world.
No.
Unfortunately, the percentages aren't great. So
that's right, especially young people.
Yeah, so we don't count the fruit, right? We just continue to serve, and
Absolutely.
Every time they ask for help, we try to provide that help, and we don't enable them. We teach them to fish rather than just give them fish the rest of their lives. So let me put on the screen. You got any other thoughts?
I just wanted to share real quick. So that young man, his mom came to pick him up because he has a condition that he violently vomits from too much THC in his system. It's called CHS. Anyways, he's vomiting. And so I call his mom. His mom comes to pick him up, and he's crying all the way home. And she calls me, and I could hear him crying. And he's saying, I just don't know why Miss Tina loves me so much.
Aww.
And I thought, Kevin, wow, I remember thinking about that with God.
Yeah.
I just don't know why you love me so much.
Yeah. And that is, we never think, and I guess technically we're not worthy, but we don't have to be. That's why they call it grace.
That's grace.
We think to ourselves, and we're conditioned to think that, well, if I do this, then God will love me. If I do this, God will love me.
He loves us no matter what.
Got to read your Bible. That's not how it's laid out.
That's
so
right.
So one of the first things we have to do is put down the bat and stop beating ourselves up all the time, and take an honest inventory. Right, this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
These are the amends I have. These are the bridges I have to mend. Right.
Yeah.
These are the steps I have to take, and I have to take them. God'll give you a squeegee, but he don't do windows. He expects you to get up every day and do it for yourself.
That's right. Yeah.
So let me put on the screen so people can see. The website is Florida Recovery Schools of Tampa Bay.com. That's the nonprofit, right?
Yes.
And here they can contact you. They can, if they have a child that maybe would benefit from this program, if they're a local business owner that might be willing to help underwrite some of the tuition for these kids.
Yes, that would be incredible. Because right now we're serving all low-income families, and they don't have the money for the tuition.
Yeah.
And I am not, I always said if I had one student, I was going to open up no matter what. And God gave me 2 students in April, and I opened the school. And, and it wasn't like, okay, God, these families have to have money in order. I was like, no matter what, I'm going to serve these families. I mean, like I said, the one student's been expelled 3 times. Where else is he going to go?
Yeah.
And I literally had the conversation today with him that I'm not giving up on you. Like, you can do whatever you want, act whatever you want. I've been cussed out so many times, and I'm like, I'm not giving up on you.
Yeah.
I love you, and you have a purpose here, and you belong here.
So as strange as it sounds, they probably don't hear that very much.
No, never.
If they hear it, there is probably an ulterior motive associated with it, right?
Yes.
So the idea that we love them till they begin to love themselves is I can't explain to people that haven't been through it or haven't seen somebody go through it, but it's the formula, right?
It is.
We cease fighting everybody and everything, and we just begin, hopefully, and these folks are young, and we were both young when we quit drinking and drugging too.
Yeah.
But you cease fighting. I wish I did this way earlier in my recovery, right? I thought for myself, well, I just got to toughen up and not drink. I'll be fine, Stop being so sensitive and so full of feelings and just don't drink. And I was just as crazy as I ever was, just not drunk. Now I didn't even have the excuse of
That's right.
that the behavior was related to my drinking. Now I'm just a jerk, right?
So
right. It's important that these kids realize that they're not alone going through this. Now we have a page on here where they can donate.
Yes.
And it's a tax deduction,
Absolutely.
right? So if they're a local business or they just need a charitable donation for their taxes,
Absolutely.
it's October. Is it October? Am I right? Is it October?
It
So
is.
this is the time of year to start talking about this, start reaching out, by the
That's
way,
right.
to local businesses. Because this is when September, October is when they meet with the accountants and try to get some of that cash off the books. So, so there is an opportunity there for them to help. You can volunteer. You can contact you guys and volunteer to work with these kids, right?
Yes.
If you have a particular business knowledge or trade or anything that could help begin to really prepare these kids for the adulthood that they're having now a crash course in preparing for.
That's right.
And the big thing we're here for, and I've got that on here. Hold on a second. Is it under events, I guess? Well, there it is.
Yeah.
We have I got it on the screen there now. We have an art gala coming up, and all at Banquet Masters, which is nice down in Clearwater.
Beautiful.
October 23rd, just a couple weeks away. And they're going to have the opportunity to meet some of these artists and even purchase the art, and a portion of that goes to the school. Is that how it works? Or you tell us what the plan is?
So each artist, so we have Q Yamamoto. He's a sculptor.
I see him there.
And just amazing sculptor. So he's actually donating one of his sculptures. It's valued at $800.
Wow.
It's beautiful. So he's donating a piece of art to Victory High School. So whoever purchases that piece of art, that goes 100% of those proceeds will go towards Victory High School to help our students receive mental health services, recovery support, and an education.
Right.
Audrey Jennifer there, the other artist, she's a painter. She's actually going to do a huge finger painting on canvas, and then she's going to auction it off.
While everybody watches, which would be awesome.
Yes.
And I think I see her standing in front of a painting or drawing of Anthony Bourdain.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And Q is actually going to be doing a piece as well with kintsugi, which is a Japanese art form. So he's going to talk about the history of that, but also he's going to be doing a live demonstration. Then we have pieces of artwork that is donated from Jason Skeldon as well as Matt Kress.
Yeah, I see Abraham Lincoln in the background there.
Yeah, it's beautiful artwork. And you can find all the information there is their Instagram or their website. You can go check out their work.
We have the artofredemption.com website.
Yes.
And so I'll go ahead and find that so we can show the folks that. And then
so that's where people can go and they can purchase their ticket. It's $35 a ticket. And what that gets a person when they purchase a ticket is, of course, 100% of the proceeds goes towards Victory High School. But they're going to get complimentary hors d'oeuvres and desserts. We have a string quartet that is actually going to be playing very beautiful classical music.
Well, that's nice. Unfortunately, I just watched the Titanic with my daughter. So you see the breath leave my body there for a second.
That's the first thing I thought.
It's only $35.
It's only $35.
So they can just purchasing the ticket support, even if they don't use it for themselves, they might give it to their employees or something like that.
Yeah, give it.
Be an excellent night for employees and whatnot.
We had people do that actually. They can't make it to the event, so they gifted it to a couple.
So and try to support it anyway.
Yes.
The date is October 23rd, and Banquet Master, big place down in Clearwater on 49th Street, which is a nice place. So they can go to artofredemption.com. It'll take them to this website where they can purchase their tickets, and they can then gift those tickets to other people, give them out to their employees if they if this is not their thing, but they still want to make a difference. And certainly, I think if you have local businesses, if you own a local business and you have the opportunity to make a difference in the community that you serve, in other words, you're a Tampa Bay business and you're benefiting from the Tampa Bay community, it only makes sense to pour into people and programs that are helping the community build not just a customer base for you, but employees too down the road. So we're not just taking away a liability, but we're building an asset for you, and that's where your benefit is compounded by investing locally and donating locally in local programs like yours.
That's right, yeah.
So
we're actually providing mental health services, recovery support, and education to young people that are going to become productive citizens of society. How cool is that?
And that is everybody that knows people from the recovery community knows that they are above average intelligence, even though they're generally emotionally train wrecks for a while, and they are hardworking. They become the best employees these people have.
That's right.
And they are also, if you own a business where you need qualified salespeople.
Oh yeah.
It's funny, as stereotypical as it is.
I was the best entrepreneur and salesperson.
A lot of my friends that I've been around the rooms with for 30 years became just leaders in the sales community in terms of their production for their businesses, whatever that is. So it's a mistake not to buy into this idea. Does that make sense? It's a bad business decision not to pour into and not to make connections with people like Tina Miller or Recovery High School, because it's a small investment now.
Yes.
Over time will pay tremendous dividends. These will be the people that they need. I know guys that started out in the power sports industry in the lot, right? Washing boats and getting them ready for customers. And now they're making six figures selling those boats, you know? And it all starts, of course, with putting the plug in the jug and really, being willing to put one foot in front of the other. So for me, it was construction, right? I didn't start off as a master plumber. I started off as an apprentice like everybody else, which is to say, for a year I dug sewer lines. That's kind of what I did all day. But you commit to that and you stick with that, and whatever that thing is, it just seems to me that people from the recovery community seem to excel in these environments. They excel professionally once they recover.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So it's
and the drive. I mean, first of all, we're like brilliant.
Yeah. Well, you guys are. That must skip a generation in my family.
No, that's what I always say about my students. They're brilliant. They're very manipulative, but they're brilliant.
Well, yeah.
And so it's using that brilliance and all of those qualities for good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So these things we look at as character defects are really God-given assets that are irrational and disproportionate, or at least misapplied.
Yes.
Right. So when we then take our character defects and we melt them down to the God-given instincts that they were meant to be in the first place, and then apply them to something positive. And I think you mentioned it, the drive, but I think that you can take advantage of the fact, that's a terrible way to say it, that these folks feel like they're playing catch-up.
Yes.
And so they want to make a difference, and they're going to put in the 10-hour day and the 12-hour day where everybody else goes home at 8, because they feel like they have to catch up.
That's right.
And so local businesses can really benefit from that type of work ethic. So the sales ability, the work ethic, the reliability, once they're clean and sober, this is money in the bank. I mean, so it's a bad business decision not to invest in these people.
Right.
And any business that has done this will testify to what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
So
I remember when I was in social work and my clinical supervisor, we were smoking cigarettes outside, during our break. And I'll never forget, I was like, oh, I'm so tired of this, addiction. Like, I stink. It's expensive. I waste time, And I threw my cigarette butt and I go, oh, I think I'm going to quit. And she looked at me and she said, you know what, Tina, you're so stubborn. You probably will.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's brilliant. I am stubborn. And so what I did is then I transformed that into, okay, I'm persistent, I'm strong-willed, I'm a hard worker, so you can take those character defects or, shortcomings, and you can actually transform them into positives.
And there's an entire network and community that are helping equip these people to do this. And and you're filling a niche that desperately needs to be filled, right? So I always say, and we got to wrap it up here in a little bit, but I always say that the 12-step programs have saved more lives than penicillin. Yeah. When you consider that it's not just the husband, but the wife, the kids, the employer, the neighbors, everybody benefits.
That's right.
Everybody's life gets better when somebody gets clean. So it is a tremendous foundation. I got the 10-minute warning here from the computer.
I have a 1-minute. Can I play a 1-minute thing just to share with the audience?
Sure.
Okay. So it's a video, but there's nothing there, but you can hear it audio. I think I think I'll be able to play it in this. But anyways, so every day we do a mental health check-in. So every day our students evaluate where they are emotionally. It's a mental health check-in, okay? And so what we want to do is we want them to learn how to self-regulate their emotions. Because we know that when we're stressed, a lot of times, people will use substances to try to relieve that stress and that kind of thing. And so we're teaching them how to regulate their emotions. And then we do 3 devotionals. We do one that is a 12-step recovery devotional, one that's a spiritual devotional, and then one that is a positive affirmation. And then we say the Victorious Creed. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to play the Victorious Creed.
Play it in there.
Creed.
Hold it right up to the microphone. And
so this is the Victorious Creed. Some licensed mental health counselors and some of my board members and myself, we came up with this. And this is what we say every day. The Victorious Creed. Recovery is possible. I deserve to be healthy.
I deserve to be healthy.
I am worthy of a positive life.
I am worthy of a positive life.
I can accept my limitations, but I will not be defined by it.
I can accept my limitations, but will not be defined by it.
I belong here, a safe place of hope, healing, and second chances.
I belong here, a safe place of hope, healing, and second chances.
I am compassionate, caring, and lovable.
I am compassionate, caring, and lovable.
I am not a label or diagnosis.
I am not a label or diagnosis.
Today I want to live.
Today I want to live.
Today I can feel true freedom from all substances.
Today I can feel true freedom from all substances.
I am victorious.
I am victorious.
Oh, come on, say it.
So they're still cool. They're still too cool to say, right. I am victorious.
They do it. They do it.
That goes away.
Yeah, they do it, And so that's what I want them to understand. They're not their label. They're not their diagnosis. They are, first and foremost, their name, who they are, first and foremost.
Yeah.
And that's so important, especially as a young person, when you're trying to discover who you are and regulate all these crazy emotions and hormones and all that. It's important for them to know, you're not just, a kid that got expelled or a troubled child or a troubled youth or an at-risk youth. It drives me nuts when people say that, label these youth. It's like, first of all, they're children of God in my eyes,
Right.
And they're who they are. They're not at risk or, at risk of what? Succeeding? Yeah. I mean,
and they're going to live up to whatever expectation you put on them. So
if
it's purely a negative one, believe me, and I can tell you from experience, I lived up to it.
Yeah.
And they said Kevin was a bad kid. I made sure they were right. So
yeah.
We're going to wrap it up here, and I want to thank you guys. I'm put myself on the camera. I want to thank you guys always for supporting the God Logic Project and for tuning in. Share this content. I'm kind of in Facebook and YouTube jail, so I need you to share and like and comment so that it tricks the algorithm into sharing this stuff within their platforms. So we're going to close it up here, but I want to thank you guys, and again, to attend the art.
Redemption.
To the Art of Redemption is where you can get your tickets for the art gala, right? I got my email invitation the other day, and somebody made fun of me that I was going to go to an art gala.
Oh.
So
you get to dress to impress. And
I'll have to go
free
to
food.
I'll have to go buy a suit.
I know.
And then and then of course Florida Recovery Schools of Tampa Bay is where you can get in touch directly with Tina and the Florida Victory High School, and just really, it's an opportunity to make a difference. I'm going to let Tina sign off now. Got a couple minutes. Give your final thoughts, and we thank you guys always for viewing the God Logic Project. You want to say goodbye to the folks? Give them your elevator speech.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate this time, Kevin, and I want to encourage you that, maybe you heard something and it's heavy on your heart, and maybe you know someone that has struggled or suffered from addictions, or maybe you know someone that's in recovery that has found victory over addictions. And, we are a family, and that's something that our students, they really, really know that they belong and that they're part of the Victory family. Yeah. And in order to be victorious, we need our community. We need support. And to be able to offer, mental health services and recovery support and education to these young people that they've been written off. Yeah, and they need a second chance. They need a third chance. They need a fourth chance.
It really does make sense, I think, and as part of your business model to pour into your local community. So thank you for being here. It's always nice to see you, and thank you for everything you do, by the way, because our community certainly needs it.
Thank you.
I want to thank you guys for tuning in. If anything we do for you, you can email me at godlogicproject@gmail.com. If you need prayer, if you got somebody struggling with addiction, I have resources and I can help. That's why we do this. Until next week, we love you guys, and we'll see you next Wednesday night if I do another show. Bye-bye.